Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very short video in which I want to have a look at Apple. I mentioned it in my previous video when I was looking at the issue of markets going up on low volume, and I mentioned in that video that if we really wanted to see what we mean by a solid, healthy trend supported by good volume, then Apple would be a great example. But before we move to the charts, may I just draw your attention to the disclaimer that I know you can see on your screen. As you know, trading can be a very risky business, so please don't ever think of using money that you cannot afford to lose. So as in case you haven't watched the previous video, it was really an answer, or I try to answer a question that I'm often asked, and that is, why do markets go up on low volume? You know, VPA, volume price analysis, teaches us how to interpret the relationship between the price action and option and volume, and lo and behold, the market still goes up. If you've got to take a few minutes to listen to that video, because I use the SPY as an example, and there's other little lessons in there as well. With regard to looking at the SPY and also seeing what is likely to happen or not at the physical open. That obviously trades physical hours, and obviously we have the futures, the S&P futures, which trades 24 hours. Anyway, so that's that video. So what I also said was, if we wanted an example, a really good example of what do we mean by a trend that is supported by healthy volume, and I said Apple has been in a phenomenal move for the last, I think it's 11, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think 11 consecutive sessions. But interestingly, much more importantly, is if we look at the volume underneath here, it has been way, not way, but above average for what you would expect Apple to trade on a daily basis. There is another issue with Apple, with stocks like Apple, is also, well, what, is some of that trade, is the majority of that traded in the pre-market, or is it in the, when, everybody participates? That's another issue, and it's something that if you'd like to day trade stocks which also trade in the pre-market, it's something you have to be aware of, because stocks do have this average volume that they trade on a daily basis, but if most of that is taken up in the pre-market, can make things a little bit tricky when you're sitting there waiting for the market to open, and it's done what it's done for the day, as it were. So I'm not going into that with Apple. I'm simply looking to give you this example of what you should be looking for in what I call a healthy trend. Now, obviously, this has been going higher. We can see it's almost a sort of V-shaped reversal that we see on the daily chart. It came off this low at $150. I mean, is that a Greystone doji? These sorts of candles at the bottom of trends can actually sometimes signal a reversal, but we also have a bullish engulfing candle underneath it. As I said, all these candles the volume is above, as I said, what the average is for Apple. That was enough to certainly to push it higher. A little bit of a pullback in terms of volume on this volume bar, and then really it really does start to motor. It's kind of sides through some very stiff resistance. We know it's stiff resistance because the accumulation and distribution indicator tells us it is, by virtue of the fact that the line is very thick. This one is even thicker than this one. Every time the price hits one of these levels, the line does thicken, as it were, and it gives us an indication of how strong that is. And what we need to go through, well, we need volume, and the volume is consistent. I suppose that's really the best way to describe it. As the price action is going higher, you're getting consistently solid, healthy volume until we get to the volume point of control. Volume doesn't increase markedly, but it's enough to certainly to push it higher. We had a gap up open yesterday, and as I said, it ended on a pretty good note, as it were. The question now is, well, you know, where is it going? And if we look at this is all part of the volume point of control. This shading here, the volume point of control is the yellow hatched line here, and at the top here we actually have a sort of double top here at 100. It's just below $185. So, all being well, assuming it gets through this this pivot here at 180, will certainly, you know, say 183 back to test this double top over here as well. So this is what is on the daily chart. But as always, it's always a good idea to take a look what is happening on the weekly. Let's have a look here. What do we see? Let's bring that up. And again, we have the similar, you know, target, if you like, for the upside. We have here at it's between 180 and 185. We can see here on the weekly chart. I'll see if I can expand it a little bit here. And the weekly volume as well. This was last week. This is the week. Perhaps a little bit of a, you know, coming down a little bit from last week. We're also at the fourth pivot, which is a pivot where often the price action will pause and perhaps, you know, retreat. Can't obviously make a judgment call on the volume because this is only Wednesday. We have you know, today, and we have the rest of the week, obviously the end of the month tomorrow, and we have NFP on Friday. We just based on this, we simply have to wait and see. But certainly on the daily chart, you know, and the weekly, the levels, there is a confluence of these levels. And again, looking at, you know, studying the volume profile on and price action, if we go way back with Apple, you know, back in, was it 2009? My goodness, was it trading at $20? Who would have thought it? I know we've had the stock splits, and we had the fall in the 2020 with the pandemic. But what is interesting on this chart is to look at the volume going higher on this monthly chart. It's absolutely vertical. It was absolutely shooting up, but look at the volume underneath it. And it's also an example of how far a market or a stock like Apple can go on simply low volume until either you have an event or something happens and, you know, it reverses. But while it's going up, yes, you are aware that it's low volume. You just, as I said, it's an awareness. But since then, the volume has been much healthier, and, you know, the price action has responded accordingly. But getting back to the daily chart, I just wanted to show it as the sort of thing you want to see, that if you are long, you've got into a trade, you are in a trend, and, you know, you are constantly looking at the price action and the volume and your support and resistance and your candle patterns, and, you know, your switch, you're going backwards and forwards in multiple time frames just to check to see, is the price action approaching a significant level, in which case, you know, if it is significant and you have this confluence of, say, resistance that you can see on more than one time frame, then, you know, you are going to have to see perhaps additional volume to actually take it over. But for the time being, use this as a little sort of example, as a little template for what you want to see in all time frames, and you know, learn from it, because the beauty about a volume price analysis is you can apply it to any time frame. It's fractal. You know, what you see on the 3-minute chart, the 5-minute chart, the 10-minute chart, the daily chart, you know, it's the same. If we were to take daily off this chart here, this could be anything. This could be a 5-minute chart, it could be a 10-minute chart. It doesn't really matter. The lessons are there, and once you recognize those signals, those lessons, you can then, it's really rinse and repeat. That's really all I can say. That may sound overly simplistic. It's not meant to be. All I'm saying is that once you recognize the signal and you know what to look for, that will just give you so much, you know, so much advantage over your fellow traders and investors. So interesting times that we're in for the market. As I said, Apple's just been a brilliant example. We know we've got the levels ahead. We had the levels, you know, as the trend was moving higher. Let's see what happens. I will come back to Apple. Let's certainly, possibly early part of next week. Let's wait for this week to finish, and we have non-farm payroll. You know, praying and fingers crossed that matters will be resolved with regard to Ukraine and Russia, and we'll just see what happens in the coming days and weeks. So thank you so much for coming along. Sorry, I almost forgot before I go. Very, very quickly, I'm always asked and I always forget. The indicators that you see on the chart are the ones my husband David and I had developed for ourselves. I'm using the NinjaTrader platform that you saw for Apple, but the indicators are available also for MT45, TradingView, and TradeStation. And you can find the details at quantumtrading.com. So thank you so much for coming along. I hope you've learned something perhaps that you didn't know before. Have a great trading day. Enjoy the rest of the trading week, and I will catch you next time.